Welcome to What Matters, Water TV and Podcast. I'm your host, Charlie Wilson. Today, the Southern California Water Coalition is celebrating women in the water industry who have made crucial contributions to achieving sustainability. These dynamic trailblazers are leaders, collaborative peers, and experts in their fields that contribute every day with leadership skills while also being mentors for other women in careers like theirs. Today, we spotlight just a few of the regional female leaders whose service to the water industry has proved instrumental in achieving strides towards sustainability. Their reflections on their careers and their advice for other women pursuing a future in water are nothing short of inspiring. So let's get to it, shall we? Heather Dyer, the general manager of the San Bernardino Valley Municipal Water District and a biologist. Sandra Kerl is the general manager of the San Diego County Water Authority and former city manager. Kim-Lopez is the general manager of the Moulton Niguel Water District and a former cop. And Kris Murray, chair of the Santa Ana Regional Water Quality Control Board and president of KLM Strategies, a dynamic political figure here in Southern California for a number of years. Together, they bring decades of experience to their roles, ensuring safe, clean water for the people of Southern California. We hope you enjoy today's conversation. Well, welcome, Heather, Sandy, Joone, and Kris. Thank you so much for being part of What Matters. How are you guys today?
Doing great.
Awesome.
Doing great.
Here.
Well, it's the first time we've put all four, in the same conversation on the What Matters. So we're looking forward to kind of mixing it up. We love it when everybody kind of gets into it. But I got to start, we're talking about some leadership in the water industry. We're talking about, with how you kind of bring yourself to the different positions. And we know you all sort of were born, hey, I want to be a water general manager. I want to be a water leader at one place. I kind of want to just start, and I'll open, Heather, with you. I mean, you all bring something different, a different strength to your position based on, and you all have these fabulous, distinct backgrounds and experience. Tell us a little bit about yours and what brought you to this wacky world that we now know as water.
Well, I came into the water industry on a very unique path as an endangered species biologist, working for a water agency in Southern California, which, as you can imagine, is really challenging. But I had a mentor who saw kind of the future in terms of water districts needing to be part of the solution for endangered species issues, especially endangered fisheries issues. And so he hired me in 2014, and I did my work, and I was leading this huge regional effort, and it was really satisfying. And I think along the way, I learned how to be a really creative problem solver and to sit around the table with people who have very different backgrounds and different viewpoints and different needs, and be able to bring everyone into the equation that produced a solution for very complex problems. And so I kind of became addicted to that problem solving, and I just wanted bigger and bigger challenges. And so then when the opportunity came, I just decided to go for this job of general manager of a water agency. And it's so satisfying. Every single day I get those challenges and the solutions and get to work with amazing women like these and people all over California. And it's just so rewarding.
Well, it is a different kind of background. Sandy, you too. I mean, you don't traditionally come out of the water business. Tell me a little bit about your background and how did you end up, through your strengths and end up leading the San Diego County Water Authority?
Yeah, I came up from a very different background. I was in city management, city manager with a full-size city here in San Diego County. And I had the opportunity to engage with the Water Authority and the previous general manager, Maureen Stapleton, and I was amazed at the work that they were doing and really was looking for a change and wanting to take a little bit different path, and had the opportunity to come to the Water Authority as the number 2 and have oversight for the organization, the day-to-day operations. And my education in water began getting, as they say, drinking from a fire hose. And getting immersed in it. One of the big projects I worked on was the Carlsbad Desalination Project. that came to fruition, being part of that team and leading the team to finance that project, and just loved it. Like Heather, loved every aspect of the business. So challenging, so much problem solving involved, and really working on the things that matter. There's a lot of things you can live without, but water is not one of them. And to be in an essential service was just so thrilling. And when the general manager retired, I was very much interested in running the organization and being in that top spot and having the opportunity to guide and mentor folks, not only in our organization, but other organizations, and really lead in the water space. And so that's sort of my journey into water. It's been all consuming and very, very rewarding.
Well, I can see where throwing you directly into the fire to do something like a desal plant in California would certainly provide you with a nice test. Joone, I mean, you and I have known each other for a while, and I've always loved the fact that your history is one where you carry high caliber weaponry. How did you end up finding your way into the water business and becoming a water general manager?
Yeah, I had a very traditional, typical path into water. I was a police officer, and carrying those weapons come in handy when I deal with characters like you. So it's been very good thing. So I was a police officer, and I loved what I did. I loved helping people, loved public service. It was really by accident I got into water. At the time, I was making a career change for family reasons, and I just started applying for different positions. And it just so happened that the first place that called me was a water agency. And so I started at the very lowest level in public affairs. As a matter of fact, I didn't even have a title. They just said, you are everyone's peon, just go do everybody's work. And that's what I did, and really applied myself and enjoyed learning and all the new challenges that came with it. As Sandy said, this is essential service, and I take a great deal of pride in what we do. So in that aspect, it was very similar to being a police officer, the value that provide, the assistance that we give to our community, the help that we are responsible for. And in 7 years, I became a general manager, not by design. I just never thought about where my career path was going to go. I just applied myself, but I realized that I wanted to be the person in charge to create a safe environment for all employees, especially women. And so that's what really motivated me to go from my first general manager job. And that took me to Calaveras County. Now, for those of you that don't know where that is, that's sort of in a very rural part of Northern California. And it was a very different community, but I learned so much about the people, the community, the water issues throughout California, particularly from Northern California perspective. And at the time, there was a lot of conversations around the Delta. And that's why I learned that when it comes to water, everyone is right. It's as strong as religion. And I have so much respect and appreciation for people's perspective and just trying to facilitate where we can find common ground. And that's what I love about being a general manager. Not only do I get to create this organizationally safe environment where people want to be a part of, but also be able to impact other aspects of society, because I'm always about the linkage, not just in the water space, in the water lane, but let's work with developers, economy, let's work with different cities, let's work with different stakeholders to bring everybody to the table and truly have an inclusive environment and water. And that's what I hope to contribute going forward. And it's such a pleasure to be amongst this great group of ladies who I just admire and have learned so much from. You not so much, Charlie.
Well, we certainly understand that. Kris, while you didn't choose the general manager route professionally, you have been an elected official, chose that public policy end, but you could have had your choice of virtually any office to pursue and a variety of issues that you could have sort of sunk your teeth into. Tell us a bit about, why water? Why did you end up settling and end up, getting a gubernatorial appointment now and serving at that Santa Ana Regional Water Quality Control Board?
Well, unlike my incredible colleagues on this call, I didn't have a technical background in water, but I have a public policy background that it started in Washington, D.C. as a legislative aide to the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, which actually includes the Water Resources Subcommittee. And so I was introduced at a very young age to water policy. Later in life, I had a career throughout those following 30 years in infrastructure, mostly in transportation, but energy and some other facets of infrastructure, but had opportunities both from an elected and an appointed capacity to be engaged in water policy. And it has so many touch points for quality of life that, to me, that was the driving interest. There's water quality, sustainability, access to water, human right to water. It really touches every facet of our lives. And it is important to me that we find solutions to the challenges that are facing us, not just in Southern California, but across the Southwest region of the United States. We have some very difficult days ahead as this drought worsens. So being engaged with all of you through Southern California Water Coalition, who is an organization that is truly solution-oriented and driven, is also important to me, and I'm proud to be part of that organization as well.
Well, let me, that kind of is a great segue, because I mean, Joone, you sort of joked about it. There's, the water industry generally looks like a lot of older male, a lot of people with this kind of, hair color to it, very grayish, very, sort of, but they tend to be engineers or they tend to be lawyers. As you look back at how you sort of embraced this industry, what advice would you now give yourself as you got into the industry? And then and Joone in particular, I'm going to kind of start with you. You kind of saw when you first came in, there weren't a lot of ladies around. There weren't a lot of mentors around. What did you tell yourself when you were getting into the industry, and how to then develop?
I told myself that I was going to make a difference. All my life growing up, I always felt like I didn't belong. I was this very awkward child, just in every aspect. So I always felt sort of like an outcast growing up. So when I go into a room or into an environment where I stick out and no one looks like me, it's kind of a feeling that I'm used to. But I've learned to overcome that and say that I'm going to find my place, create my place in this room, and also to make sure that it was a way to bring others, not just like myself, but all different kinds of people from all walks of life into the industry. And that was something that I've committed from day one that still stays with me. And I'm very motivated by that, because I think when you talk about diversity, it's not just about gender, it's not just about race. I mean, I kid with you, Charlie, but I've learned a lot from you over the years. You've given me a lot of opportunity being on the Southern California Water Coalition Board of Directors, where I've had a chance to meet amazing people like this group. And so it's about different perspectives and ideas that come with different experiences. So I think that it's not just about a categorization of people, but it's about the invitation of all people. And that's something that I feel very strongly and passionate about.
So Heather, you mentioned, as a biologist, it's one thing to go out in the field and sort of be in that lonely world, do the scientific work. But as you mentioned, you had some folks that sort of helped guide you or intrigue you along the way. What advice, though, did you give yourself as you were, getting your toehold and starting to climb up a ladder in the water business?
Well, I actually, when I started here, I never imagined becoming the general manager, because the people that I saw around me, unfortunately, I didn't know Joone at the time or Sandy. All the general managers I knew were male engineers, or lawyers. So I didn't really even think of it as something that was possible. And then I went to get my executive MBA at the Drucker School of Management, which is a very holistic program focused on developing yourself, leadership by giving, bringing in, many people's viewpoints. And so I really started thinking about what I could offer as a leader in any role, not just as a general manager. And so when my former general manager announced his retirement, I just thought, I looked at this organization that I loved, and I saw areas that we could improve. We were very, very strong externally building partnerships, but we were very focused on the work, not a lot of internal culture building or leadership building. Everyone was very, nose to the grindstone, just keep plugging away. So I saw opportunity where I could bring something different. And so I just thought, why not me? I had just finished my MBA. I felt really strong in my leadership skills. I had brought 11 agencies together to tackle these big regional problems. And so I figured, why not? It was a risk. I'm pretty sure when they announced my selection as the general manager of Valley District, there was shock, like silent shock throughout the whole organization because I hadn't told anyone I was going for it. So, but I think it worked out. And now that I look back, I became general manager on December 31st of 2019. So I was GM for 3 months before the COVID situation hit. And I just think it worked out for the best because coming from this different background and I didn't have this, huge set of expectations on me of what I should be like. I was able to adapt like very, very quickly and just maybe it's the ecological background, like adaptive management is kind of my motto. So I think it really helped us, get through the COVID situation, as well as we possibly could have hoped. And that is because, really I was set to just figure it out along the way. I didn't have a preconceived idea of what I should be doing or what the expectations were and all of that kind of stuff. And so it was really helpful and it worked out really well.
Well, and your predecessor, and again, this is probably just something of the industry, right? He had been there a very long time. I mean, that culture was very stable. It was very predictable. And, coming in and then creating the new culture, I mean, was that a shock to the system?
I think some of our staff was shocked for sure. But again, my predecessor, he was such a good collaborator externally. And that's really kind of what set us apart. And so we had all these good external relationships and I just tried to bring that internally. And like Joone said, bringing out your strengths, not just with all of your outside partners, but with your internal colleagues was not natural to us. I would fully admit we are an organization of, a lot of really hardworking nerds, to be honest. Everyone just loves to do their work. And so, we didn't eat lunch together. We didn't, talk around a water cooler. It was very formal almost. And so I just brought this like very down to earth. I had been on staff for 6 years, just, another person in their office. And so I think I just brought a very down to earth perspective that I'm very approachable. They've known me for a long time. But it was a shock and it took people a little while. But then again, COVID hit. And so then all norms were just out the window. And so I guess it was kind of a blessing in disguise.
Well, Sandy, speaking of cultures, I mean, as you indicated, you got to follow a very strong personality, happened to also be a woman leader. But that culture issue, as you sort of stepped up and you went through that learning process, as Heather was describing, was there any particular advice that you gave yourself, or was it just others that were helping to encourage you and to help you sort of move up, that when the opportunity presented itself, say, hey, I'll raise my hand. Yeah, it's time for me to now to lead this, as described, this very gangly bunch of nerds.
Well, I think very similar to Heather's experience is that I think our organization has been really great about accomplishing things and externally being able to drive a really cutting edge path to water reliability. And yet there wasn't a lot of work on the internal infrastructure of the organization. And I really saw where my skill strengths are in terms of bringing people together, being able to create a workspace that is inclusive to all types of people, and create a culture that focuses on excellence, but also fosters community, collaboration, inclusion. And so as soon as while I was acting general manager, we went through a organization-wide employee engagement survey. And the results of that were, as I had suspected, a lot of areas for growth. And once we got those results back, we went to work on how do we start addressing the culture. And in fact, COVID became a really unique opportunity to really sort of blow up the paradigm and the structure and do things differently, because you had to. You went from more of a command and control approach to a bit decentralized and really spreading the opportunities and the responsibility for the work throughout the organization in a way that you didn't in a more traditional setting. And as an organization, I started a weekly call with all the employees virtually. And in actuality, it was more of an opportunity to communicate with employees than would have ever been accomplished had we not have been in COVID, and use that as an opportunity to showcase employees who wouldn't necessarily speak before the board or get to share what they do in the organization with their colleagues. Also an opportunity to create a sense of community where employees could not only share their work, but also share the challenges of going through COVID and the social unrest that we went through, and the myriad of issues. And so really very much like Heather, really knew what my strengths were, is both in terms of managing an organization, but to really facilitate culture and make the organization of the future look different than it did on the day that I took hold as general manager. And we were awarded a workplace of choice in 2021, and that came after 2 years of a lot of really hard work and engagement by the employees, and it's something that I'm very proud of. In addition to that, we've moved initiatives forward in the water space. So it doesn't mean we're not focused on the main thing, because the main thing is the main thing, right? But how people feel about work, how they come to work, do they show up fully engaged? I think we have a much different workforce and their feeling about the organization than we did before. And that's been really rewarding to me.
Well, Kris, coming from Washington, D.C., we certainly know there are no nerds there, for you to have to draw yourself to. But again, you've served in city council, you've served in metropolitan, you've served now at the regional board. So in taking those positions, as you sort of looked at the places to serve, is this a logical? It's like, hey, you give yourself advice. I'm gonna go here next. This is the next run on the ladder, or were these positions that just sort of opened up and you took opportunity? I mean, how did you go about your self-motivation and remaining, as you said, within the water industry?
I've been very fortunate, like everyone on the call has shared, to have some very strong mentors and folks who supported me throughout my career, and doors were opened that led to new pathways that I might not have anticipated on my own because of those mentors. Starting in Washington, D.C., and particularly in the time when I did, which was in the early 90s, it was very few women serving in the roles of legislative assistants and directors doing that level of policy. And then I've had this opportunity to serve throughout my career in infrastructure, which has also been very male dominated, or the water industry. We like to refer to all of you as the gray haired gentlemen that we serve with as the water buffaloes, affectionately nicknamed the water buffaloes. But in every circumstance, I've been very fortunate to have a lot of support from male colleagues as well as the women I've served with. And I just encourage young women who are looking at this industry, to not come in with a hard and fast set of ideas about what they're looking for, because there's so many opportunities they might not even know exist out there. And just by getting involved, meeting new people, getting engaged at the association level at all, whether it's state association boards or local and regional groups like the Southern California Water Coalition, you're going to meet so many people, and doors are going to be open for you that you might not have anticipated as well. And, policy is a genuine love and a passion of mine, and serving in an appointed and an elected capacity, that's always been my focus, is how do we develop good public policy that will serve not just current needs, but generational needs. And And we need that kind of leadership at all levels of the water industry, and quite frankly, governance at the local, state, and federal level. So I just encourage women in particular, but all young people, to look at the water industry, because there's so much diversity in this field, whether you're coming at it from an engineering standpoint, a scientific biodiversity, as Heather was sharing, or whether you want to get engaged at the policy level and governance. There's just a vast number of opportunities for people to be engaged in the water industry, and it's very rewarding.
Well, now that you are all in these prominent positions, from general managers to, again, gubernatorial, in some cases, we talked to Martha Guzman last month about presidential appointments. Sandy, let me start with you on this one. Now that you get to sit in these positions, I know that conversations like this and conversations that help to encourage other women to enter into the field, get into the industry, what advice do you give young women who are potentially looking at what the next step in their careers might be and whether or not they should get into the water business?
Well, this is something I feel really passionate about, that the water industry has a whole host of opportunities at every level to come in to do something that is so rewarding, to work on an essential service, and that whether you're coming in with a high school diploma or you're coming in with an advanced degree, there's opportunities at every level. And so what I like to talk a lot about is getting people excited about it, and talking about how does the water get to us. Folks that haven't been in the business, really very educated people don't even understand what it takes to bring water, and how important it is to ensure that we have people that are in the business to make this all work. And so really showing a passion for it, and also saying that you can do anything. It's you put yourself out there and you take on opportunities, you create opportunities, you see where your skill set can fit in, and really avail yourself to take on projects and engage in the field. And I think, oftentimes women in particular tend to be a little bit more timid about putting themselves out there, and really creating that safe space for people to do that is something that I try and create within our own organization. Really sharing that you're only limited by your thoughts about what you can do. And so just really put yourself out there. I thought Heather had a beautiful example of her trajectory to being a general manager, and it would not have been a path that folks may have seen. And she felt the confidence to put herself out there and make it happen. And so I think the more we encourage that, encourage the risk taking, and even if you don't get what you want the first time, there's always the next time. And there are going to be so many more opportunities as we see the graying of this workforce, that there really will be limitless opportunities for women to come into this business.
Yeah. Well, Joone, let me kind of bridge off of that, because I know you've had with that Moulton Niguel, you've had this issue about bringing new people into the industry and then the promotion. Is it a generational issue, or do you also see opportunities or as Sandy said, sort of timidity with some women when they come into the field? How do you give advice to people and how they should then be pursuing careers and their opportunities?
It's everything. The advice that I always give, I always tell, and whether it's ladies or young professionals, I always tell everyone, be a badass. And that stands for be bold, authentic, determined, and always stand for something. Because sometimes if you just get in your own skin and you think about yourself, there's a lot of awkwardness, maybe insecurity. But when you focus on those around you and making an impact, helping people, helping your community, you realize just how much you are capable of, because it's no longer about you, but what you do. And that's where I found my strength over the years. Being a police officer, being in situations, life and death, that really helped me discover who I am and also who I am not. And finding that kind of strength that you don't think that you're capable of, that is the greatest discovery. And it's very strengthening. That's why you have to stick your neck out there. You have to go for things that you're not ready for. You'll live, you'll figure it out. Just like Heather said, she wasn't sure what she's getting into. And Kris said, keep an open mind. Sandy, believe in yourself. Whether you fall or fail, you'll get up again. Trust yourself to recover and come back stronger. And so don't be afraid. It's okay to feel afraid, but don't act afraid, because those are two different things. And when you can make that leap, the world changes. And that's why I love getting older. I love my age. I don't want to be younger, because as I gotten old and as I failed and I tried, I just really have that confidence that everything will work out. And all you have to do is just apply yourself, focus on a purpose outside of yourself. And that's where you find the greatest joy and fulfillment. And so from that standpoint, don't limit yourself. And I do see this a lot, especially in young ladies, where they say, well, I don't have enough experience. I haven't been around that long. And I said, so what? We need that different perspective. We need that different experience. And let's create something that we haven't seen before in our industry. Let's transform. And that's how we learn, and that's how we grow. And it's okay to be uncomfortable. That is a natural feeling of when you're growing. So my role is to always help people and allow them to discover their dreams, support them in pursuing their dreams, and see what kind of impact it can have all around.
So Heather, you're now in charge. You've had all of that learning, and the director experience, quite frankly, is a very different perspective, and one that really applies itself to any organization. But what kind of advice then do you give to young women looking to get into the industry, or at least to convince them that, hey, maybe this is something you should look at?
So I actually give this advice to all of my staff that are trying to figure out what their career path is. And you won't know it in the beginning, right? You're just trying to figure out how you get to the next step. At the Drucker School, I took a class that was led by a professor named Jean Littman-Blumen, and she talks about this new leadership style that's based on interconnected and interdependent systems, and that you need to be able to kind of move beyond the past styles, which maybe were power dominated and competition and things like that, and really look to the more relational efforts. And so when I was in her class, in true nerd form, which I say that, I just want to make it clear, there is no greater compliment in my world than being called a nerd. So in true nerd fashion, I made a PowerPoint presentation on how I was going to acquire these skills that made me very uncomfortable, because I was a scientist, sitting there with my Excel data sheets, trying to figure these things out for fish. So I would go to an aqua conference, for instance, and I feel very uncomfortable with just the small talk part of it. I would feel very comfortable giving a presentation for my area of expertise, but as soon as I got out into the social setting, I just felt uncomfortable. It felt inauthentic to just, kind of discuss whatever things, might be coming up. And so I made this PowerPoint presentation. These are the steps I'm going to take to get more comfortable in that kind of social setting. I wanted to go, one of the ways that I chose to build those skills was also going on a DC advocacy trip. Like the thought of going and sitting down with, senators and congressmen and committee leaders, I was just like, who am I to sit down with these people? What am I going to talk about with them? But I made a plan. And I said, I'm going to grow these skills. And again, I had a great mentor who was like, sure, go on a DC trip. So it's finding those opportunities to build your skills and to build your confidence and to lean on someone who's done it before. And I think that's one thing that, all of these leaders on the call today are so good at, is like seeing those opportunities to help the next generation of leaders. And to me, that is what we really need in California Water, is we need leaders. We have lots of engineers, we have lots of scientists, we have, lots of technical experts, finding those people who can be the leaders of the next generation to bring all of these parties together and find those common solutions, that's how we're going to get through the very large challenges that we are facing in terms of long-term water supply, security, resilience. And so that's really what I'm focused on. Like, Sandy said, we still got to do the thing, right? Like, we still have to make sure that we have a reliable, resilient water supply. But while we're doing that, let's figure out, how do we bring up the next generation? How do we reach out to those who maybe hadn't been seen previously and bring them in? I'll never forget that when I told my the former general manager sitting in an airport in Sacramento that I had applied for his job, he was shocked, like silent shocked. And he later told me, it's not that I didn't think you could do it, I just never thought of you. And so that's what I'm trying to change, is getting everyone to see beyond the traditional, who's the next general manager, who's the next chief of whatever department, and look to those qualities that various people within our organizations, within our region have, and help them, help boost them up. Like Joone said, like, let's give something back and let's bring up those leaders and help them be successful and prepared for the future.
Well, as you describe each of your experience, I mean, I think you all know that the Southern California Water Coalition actually was founded by a dynamic, very strong-willed, some would say quirky woman in Harriet Weeder. But I will tell you, she was an absolute force of nature back in the early 1980s, of all places, that it was a passion that she had, and she was really, truly one of those trailblazers. And she spent a lot of time cultivating, inspiring, bringing other women into politics, into public policy, and obviously also into the water world. I have to wonder, Kris, I want to start with you on this. Is there a particular woman that you worked with before who inspired you, whether it was in Washington, in water and transportation? Was there any particular personality that sort of sticks out that said, you know what, that's kind of somebody I would like to emulate?
Well, the person who comes to mind most immediately, and the force of nature descriptor you just used was what triggered it, is Lucy Dunn. And she's just retired, but I know she's got new chapters in how she will lead our state and region. But nonetheless, she is about empowering people to be their best version of themselves. And I think it's so important that we create circumstances, whether it's professionally or through volunteer opportunities or appointed or elected, where we are looking about how we are continuing to help and mentor others around us, that it's seamless and integrated, and it's just part of our culture that we are looking to help lift young people, men and women in this industry up, because water is about quality of life ultimately, and making sure that there is equity in that quality of life for all individuals who live in our state and in our country. So water is just central to that, and getting young people involved, helping them learn to innovate. Because one thing I do think our industry suffers from is, at least historically, is status quo and complacency sometimes. And we are facing challenges that are unprecedented in this industry as it pertains to how we are going to deliver and secure water long-term for the people who live here. So it's absolutely important that we be thinking outside the box, that we be engaging people who aren't traditionally involved in this industry, and that we encourage young people to look at careers in this industry that may have atypical, as Joone and some of us have shared, atypical backgrounds, but can bring that new perspective forward. And Joone, when you were talking about, getting back up on the horse after failing, honestly, our failures can lead to our biggest successes, and they truly make us who we are, because you can learn so much more when you fall down and fail than you do sometimes from success. So I had a really great mentor at a younger point in my career, who said, Hall of Famers, total baseball fan, Hall of Famers fail 7 out of 10 times at bat. They swing and miss 7 out of 10 times. You've got to get up there and swing, right? And you may miss that ball. You may miss that opportunity. It may not work out, but you have no idea where it might lead you because you tried. And so don't be afraid to use your voice at any point in your career. There are no bad questions. And one tip I always try to encourage young people when I'm talking to is find out who that smartest person in the room is. It's rarely going to be you, find out who it is and just latch onto them, because those individuals have shared in my career, have shared so much with me, imparted so much knowledge, and really, broadened my horizons. And I'm so appreciative. And people are almost always willing to share their time, their information, their resources, their knowledge with you. And all you have to do is ask, because that resource is out there for everybody.
I'm glad you mentioned the importance of failing and falling, because all three of you I know personally. And, when you fall and fail, you know how much it hurts, whether it actually physically hurts or hurts your ego. And then you see all these people that are around you. And when you see them fail, you want to help them. You want to give them words of encouragement to help them get back on the horse. And I know when I stuck my neck out and I didn't get what I was going for, I know Sandy reached out to me. Kris, you and I've sat many times just talking, and I really appreciate your guidance. And Heather, one of my former employees works for you. So I know you're just a leader who walks the talk. I mean, you're the real deal. So I think just that community of failure not only makes us stronger, but it makes us closer, because we could so identify and be willing and wanting to lend that hand when you see someone else struggling.
Yeah, I would add, Joone, I feel like that aspect is the most nourishing part of this job, that we're all facing these significant challenges. We're all stressed about when is it going to start raining somewhere in California. And so it's hard, you get discouraged, and it's just like the problems are just overwhelming at times. But then when I have an interaction with one of you or one of my colleagues from another agency or my staff, that is what provides the energy to keep going, to keep tackling those problems, to not give up. I remember 2 weeks ago, maybe I had the longest day. I think it was like 9 meetings in a day. So exhausting, so tiring. And I had one great conversation with a staff member at the end of the day. And I walked out of this building going, I love my job. I can't wait to come back tomorrow. And so that is what feeds me, and I think probably feeds all of you, is just the ability to make significant change for the good in California, in the nation. There's so many opportunities to just really be a catalyst for change. And so I think these types of conversations expand across many different industries. And I hope that, the water industry, what harder job is there in California right now than being in the water industry? So if we can all, really coalesce around the opportunities and be stronger together, I think that's just such a good model for the rest of the problems in our state and our country.
This is Sandy, that there's no challenges in San Diego, right? Everything just clicks away, like an odometer.
It's interesting that you say that. As you know, we've been on a 25 year march to water supply reliability. And we're fortunate at this moment to be in good standing because of the investments that we've made. But that doesn't mean that we're sitting back and we're not dealing with any challenges. We're dealing with challenges just like everybody else. And the work is never done, right? There's never a point that you hit and go, oh, we're good forever. That's just not how this business works. So yeah, there are a lot of challenges. And one of the things I really latched onto that, Kris, that you said was the idea of finding the smartest people in the room, and really for young people coming up, watching those people, learning from them, being a sponge. I think that's something I did a lot in my career that was really helpful. And try and find a mentor or two. You don't have to have just one, but a couple of people that know your strengths, and can provide insight and guidance, especially on those times when you go for something and you don't get it. You need somebody to be a thought partner to sort of deconstruct what may have happened, and so that you're prepared for the next time. And so really liked what you said about that. I think that creates a huge opportunity to get educated in a way informally, but in a way that's very meaningful.
So as we kind of get close to our end, because we could have this conversation and do it for days, right? There's so much here that is interesting and motivational for women in general, but for anybody who wants to be in and around this business. I'm going to put you all in that position. You're all going to be, royalty for the day. You are in complete charge, but I want to ask the question, what do you, from your experience, what do you look forward to most in seeing women achieve in the future? Heather, I'm going to start with you because I'm going to get you cold.
Everything. I can't even think of what the limits might be. I'm so inspired by just meeting and with all of these women today. And, Sandy says she's been on this 25-year journey to water reliability. And I'm kind of at the beginning of the planning efforts for local supply. I'm at the point where it's like, okay, we're 10 years in on planning and now we have to find all the money for it. And so, having that network in place that I can call someone like Sandy and say, like, this is what I'm facing. Do you have any pointers? I just feel like that's such a rich tapestry of resources in our area that we can tie into. And I just, I think that the sky is the limit. And not just for women, I think for people from everywhere, from all backgrounds, areas of expertise. I think that's the great thing about water these days, is that it is so complex that there's many different skills that you need. And so it's not just a typical lawyer, business major, engineer at the top of these organizations, because it's really what we're looking for are problem solvers. And problem solvers can come from any background, any, walk of life, any, different area of expertise. I think that's just so exciting because there's no limits. There's no limits to the solutions that we can come up with all of this diverse group of people working on these problems.
Sandy, how about you? What do you look forward to in watching women, achieve, whether it's in water or in general, just in this realm? What if you, what do you expect to see here in the future?
Yeah, I think women are really taking their space and really being open to opportunities much more so than I think when I initially got in the business, even in the business of government. I think that all of the issues, particularly in water, are so complex that you really do need a variety of perspectives and a really holistic look at issues. And so I think women being at all levels of the organization really provide that richness and that depth to be able to create new solutions, because frankly, the old solutions don't work anymore. And we as an industry have been very focused on doing the same thing for a long time. And those tools don't work like they used to work. So how do we do it differently? How do we engage differently? How do we bring people into the conversation? So much about developing supplies is really engaging the community and their willingness to pay for and support those projects. And that means engaging all of your community, not just those that have traditionally been players in the public sphere. And how do you engage those communities? And it really takes people from different backgrounds to sort of see that opportunity and to figure out how to make the most of it. So I think we enhance the richness of the work that we do and the quality of the solutions we come up with by the diversity and specifically having more women at all levels in the water industry.
Joone, what are you looking forward to seeing women achieve in the future?
What I'm most excited about seeing is women bringing compassion, care, and humility to our industry, because I think sometimes as an industry, we've been very successful and it's been very institutional, very politically strong. And sometimes we forget what we're about, which is we're about people within the organization, outside of the organization, outside of our respective service area. It's the broader community of people of California. And having that compassion, especially coming out of the pandemic, the desire for people to feel connected, the importance of that, I think we definitely bring that to the table and making this industry a little bit more compassionate about the different communities that we serve, not just our very own. And then truly caring to where you give yourself. It's not about you, putting the ego aside and saying, how does this affect others? And putting the care and the attention that it takes to provide this essential service, which we are absolutely privileged to be a part of. It's a great responsibility. And with that responsibility, they say always comes those obligations. And humility. I think, you don't know what you don't know. And we shouldn't get so caught up in, oh, we've always done it this way and we've done it well. Having the humility to say, maybe I really don't know, I need help, and asking for that help, reaching out beyond our, little lane of water, but to the broader aspects of the different stakeholders who we work with. And so I think those three things will make the industry better and stronger. And that's what I think that we could bring. And I've already seen that happening. So that's why I'm excited, because I know it's going to just get even more so as we go into the future and as we bring in more leaders and women in all walks of life. I think it will be a very exciting future for us.
Kris, you get the final word. What are you looking forward to seeing women achieve, whether it's in the water space or in policy and leadership in general?
Across the board, I think women have a very unique capacity to innovate and to really bring those new concepts and ideas forward. I look forward to women bringing real strength and coupled with the compassion that Joone just talked about. Water is first and foremost about life and serving others and serving people and making sure that quality of life is there for everyone in our communities. The fact is, the most wonderful thing about being in the water industry is you are making a difference every single day in the lives of others. And so you can feel a genuine sense of accomplishment from that regard, and that your work matters and is making a difference. I think that's very important to young women and young people in particular. They want to know that what they're doing has an impact. And this is definitely an industry where you can make an impact. The rules don't apply anymore. Supply is a real issue. Climate change is a real issue. And that's not a political statement. The fact is our climate is changing, and this drought and these periods of drought are getting longer and longer, and our reprieves from them are getting shorter and shorter. So how are we going to innovate on delivery? How are we going to innovate on supply? How are we going to innovate in access and connection to water? And I think women have a very unique ability to bring those new concepts, technologies, and ideas forward that will make a difference for future generations.
Well, ladies, I can't thank you enough. And I have to tell you, just in the short time we've had a chance to spend just today, I sort of have two takeaways I want to share with you. One, as you all described, between the pandemic, between the changing climate, organizational structure, the culture of our organizations, the industry in general, I find that there's a lot of pressure that comes in sort of the dynamic that we're in today. But I think all of you have demonstrated that with pressure, you develop diamonds. And each of you, in my eyes today, these are shining diamonds in the industry in your leadership position. And as Heather said, I also have to say thank you to you, because I'm hoping that at least I was smart enough here at the Water Coalition to surround myself clearly with 4 women today. They're way smarter than I am. And you make this organization much stronger as a result. So for that, I have to say, very humble thank you for your leadership within our organization, but more importantly, thank you for your commitment and your leadership within your respective organizations, and for this industry, which, as you all indicated, it's one that a lot of people don't pay a lot of attention to until it's not there. And the work that we do is every day. And then, as you all indicated, we still got to do the work. There's lots still to do. Thank you all, Heather, Sandy, Joone, and Kris. Thank you so much for being part of What Matters.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Charlie, and to everyone at Southern California Water Coalition for highlighting these issues and bringing such great people together.
Yes, thank you all. I can't wait to see you in person someday.
Yes,
we'll
great.
in person next time, right, Charlie? We'll put you in the center and we'll just talk around you and kind of throw you around.
Perfect. Sounds like the perfect day to me. Well, thanks for joining us on What Matters Water TV and Podcast. If you like today's discussion, go to wherever you download your podcast and give us that 5-star rating. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to our channel. That'll help us build our presence in this new world and in this format. If you're interested in helping sponsor this program, please reach out to us at SoCalWater.org and send us a message. And as we close out today's show, I leave you with this challenge. Be a part of the conversation. Be a part of the solution. At the Southern California Water Coalition, we educate to advocate. So as public policy leaders, we have difficult choices. Together, we help them make informed decisions. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you again next time here on What Matters Water TV and Podcast.